Welcome back, everyone. It is my pleasure to introduce Sean Mc Guire. Sean is a user experience architect at Microsoft, and he is mostly involved in requirements engineering, envisioning workshops, and UI/UX design. Having a profound experience in software testing and UI/UX design, Sean is a conference speaker and a book writer. In this talk, Sean is going to share his approach in engineering the software requirements to achieve the outstanding user experience. Sean, this virtual scene is all yours.
Hi, hello, and welcome, and thanks for joining the session. So, as announced, my name is Sean Mc Guire. I'm a UX architect working for Microsoft. And what I want to share with you today is an approach how you can use design thinking for requirement engineering as well as for designing better applications, or let's say better uh, uh, team experiences for your testing team. This said, what I'll start with is a high-level overview. Just apparently have a problem with my PowerPoint. Apologize for that. Um, and the question is basically, what are those scenarios where you can actually use design thinking for testing and requirement engineering? I think the first scenario that is relevant is really about having discussions with your end users, with your customers, when you're building the application. Because in many cases, what happens is you envision the application, you build it, and then it's down to the testers to find the last problems or the details in the solution. So I just need something to drink. So the idea is be sure and use the workshop for requirement engineering for an expectation management to ensure when you deliver the solution, you really know what it should contain. And the second scenario is about using design thinking for actually building your team experience. Now, I'll give you a short example how that would look like if you're actually doing a workshop to gather those requirements and not jump into a klaxon. Also share this so you can have a detailed look at this later on. So I'll just put the klaxon link into the chat, and you can then join and also explore this this example. So here's the link for you. So the basic idea about all of those workshops, how do they work, is you create a poster in Klaxon and you have a topic. This is from a LinkedIn article, so all of those post-its you here see are kind of fabricated. It's a workshop because I can't share it. But in general, you're going to have a topic that you want to work on. Then you're going to have a section where you're going to look for new ideas. And in many cases, you're going to be building your application, a user journey, or the product that you actually want to work on. And now the nice thing is you're collecting those requirements in a workshop and you kind of look into those detailed ideas. This is where actually the link is to creating those use cases, and you directly can convert them actually into test cases. Like I was not able to register and see the app, so I have no use for it and I will delete it. And that means now you can kind of create those user stories and with the end users together. And then in many cases, from those user stories in general, what you're going to be doing when you're creating those requirements or crafting your solution is you're going to go into a second step. And this is more, let's say, typically using an affinity diagram. And what that means is you're going to look at all of those individual user stories and try to find out, let's say, synergies or topics that you want to work out. For example, portal function, digital maturity, medical records. So different kind of parts of the application that you want to build. And then a good way to do it is to put all of this into a 3-horizon map. And what you're actually doing is you're taking an abstract end user requirement, like I want to ensure that the security of my app is not going to expose private data. you're finding basically a topic where this fits, and then you're putting this into a technology roadmap. So this is a typical way how you can use design and engineering and linking those to real use cases. So the nice thing is once you create this technical roadmap or the technical solution, so you see, for example, here in the bottom, things like data fluidity, data integration, asset management, and things like that. Now what you can do is you can always link those technology bits over the affinity diagram to what are those requirements that actually created this. And then you can look back into the conversation, into the workshop. Why is that helpful? Because in the end, when you're trying to build your application, you always want to be sure that by creating the solution, the technical solution, you don't use their perspective of the end user. So I'll come back to this later. Idea how this actually technically works, and what we're going to be talking about in the session today is how you can actually craft this design thinking workshop to have a better alignment with the customer, and when you're crafting the solutions in the beginning, and also use them for the testing. So going back to the PowerPoint, that was the first scenario where I would see that design thinking workshops can help you, and I shared the link so you can go there afterwards and explore it. The second scenario that is very interesting is you can use design thinking workshops for improving your test scenarios or actually creating a test strategy. I had a workshop 2 days ago. It was a full workshop part of the conference. We were working on the same topic, and what I'll share with you is an example how you can build a workshop that's really about your testing team and your testing abilities. So what I'll show you here, the results of this. And again, I'll also share this, so feel free to explore this and go into this, see how those details look like. And here's the link. So what we did here in a brief session, and it was just part of the training that we had 2 days ago, and the question was like, what would be interesting from a test perspective? And here we had, let's say, as a topic, you are a new test manager for an important project that need to be delivered in time, and the project is late. This is your first day on the team. How could we design a perfect test strategy for delivering the project by the end of December? So it might be you're in a project, you have to deliver your testing application or all the tests within a specific time frame. Typical things that you might have is, let's say, budget time restrictions. Maybe you don't have enough developers to help you with the testing. It could be almost everything. The way this workshop was structured was just saying hello is a typical way, like just so you know who's participating. You can do these workshops physically in a room where you just print out a poster, or you can do them online as you see here in Klaxon. Then the first, like, what general ideas would you have for improving those test standards? So imagine you have a smaller or larger team, maybe it's 5 people, maybe it's 20 or 30 people, and you're trying to build this test strategy. And design thinking basically says, well, first try to explore the problem space you have, invite those people, have the conversation, and they will typically be sharing things within your organization, like, oh, testing is confusing because people are sending updates with emails, and then we don't know what is the last status, or if we test, it just takes so long until we get access to the test environment, and then we have to use dummy data, but with the dummy data, we can't actually do the real tests. So this is like a typical way that you kind of first select informations about the current state. And here there was like basically, let's say, a voting, what are those top 3? And then you see this is a little bit messy, but this is also kind of typical for design thinking, that you go into a workshop with assumption how you want to build something, but actually having the conversation with the experts, it turns out that things are very different. And the way we kind of split this is up was First, you would kind of analyze the problem. So if you're assigned to the test team, you need to manage this test team. Then you would actually propose some new goals. You would evaluate the solutions. You would then execute the strategy, and then of course you would be monitoring results, improvements with new iterations. And here we had basically like swim lanes. We have the manager, business analyst, product owner, test team leader, tester, and test developer. And the idea was, and that was the first part, like who is actually involved in this complete end-to-end testing process. And without going through of the details, you can go and explore it on your own. What is the idea of this kind of a workshop is where you're going to have a conversation with the people that are involved in your team that are relevant. And let's say for test team lead, he will first check the roadmap and the deliveries. He will also kind of use the statistics about the bugs they had in the past. And he'll probably sit down with the DevOps team to discuss like what are their preferences, how would they want to test. Is also going to have a conversation, a one-to-one conversations with the testers. At the same time, we will need to have some conversation with the product owner, because maybe test strategy could be to test different stuff or less stuff, or improve or reduce regression testing. So there are many strategies, and it might just affect the end product that you're delivering. And then also getting involving the business analyst to kind of think really about what's important. What you just see here is that you kind of use this workshop, and this will usually take maybe 2 or 3 hours to capture those ideas and craft a new solution, how you want to do those testing strategies. Top, you just have the high level things you're doing for each step, like create good team alignment with DevOps and test team, complete picture of current state of the project, and you spoke with all the stakeholders before you actually went into crafting a new solution. So this is typically what you can do, how design thinking could actually help in these scenarios. Going back to the presentation, what I would want to walk you through is, let's say, a simple way to use this method to build both either the workshop for your end users, for your customers in terms of requirement engineering, creating those use cases, as well as basically, let's say, more the change management aspect. How can you use those for team building internally? And the first question is, why should you actually put design thinking on, let's say, on your agenda, or why should it be interesting for you in general? And I really believe in the end, in order to be successful in anything, especially in the software business, it's all about collaboration. So really think about design thinking as a collaboration tool. Good collaborators are successful. And if we look into those software projects, if things don't work, it's always about collaboration. It's about misalignment, people misunderstanding things, customers thinking they're getting something that they won't get, or software developers thinking they need to develop something that's not in scope and things like that. So really think of design thinking as a collaboration tool. How are you going to do it? No matter what problem you have, if you're building an application, if you're discussing with your customers, or if you're building a test strategy or trying to improve your test cycle, it's very simple. It's just find people that care about the problem, get them in a room and have a conversation. And design thinking is all about listening. You always have your own opinion, and what's going to change your opinion, what's going to improve it in the end is really about getting input from other people, and design thinking really is a tool to get other people involved. If you lean back and listen, that's basically the whole power of design thinking. Now, just one slide about why this is called Billboard design thinking. What's the idea behind it? After being in this business for many years and doing 500 plus design thinking workshops, the one thing that kind of frustrates you is you have all of this excitement in the workshop. Everyone says, oh, we have these great ideas. This is the way we're going to change our process. This is the way we're going to build our product. But if you look back, maybe 5 or maybe only 2% of those workshops really then create real change and make it to the product. So what's the real problem? Well, taking this excitement and all of those ideas is not enough. You actually have to sell it. And this is kind of the combination between design thinking and advertising. Use the design thinking to create those ideas, and use the advertising actually to sell the ideas. and be very conscious of that. And as you will see later on, you will always create a poster. And what's the compelling thing about the poster? Poster usually you will find next to a highway, a place where people have really little or spending little time, have little attention. In the end, it always has three elements. The first thing, it's going to tell you what it's about. Yeah, for example, you deserved a vacation. There's going to be an image on it. It's like a beach of Hawaii, so maybe a place you want to go. And at the bottom, it's going to say just $9.99. So it's always this combination of a clear agenda, what you're talking about, a visual that's going to help you understand what the product is about that you should be buying, and a call to action. So if you combine those two things and you use your design thinking workshop to create the poster that you're going to use to sell your idea afterwards, internally to managers, to customers, to partners, to product owners, that's the real power and idea of using design thinking in this sphere. So just 3 slides about to get everyone on the same level or understanding of design thinking. I think what design thinking really is, it kind of always starts with an observation. There needs to be some need, something that you want to do in order to actually think about using a creative technique. Design thinking is presented from the IDEO, basically has 5 steps. It's emphasize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. And it's sometimes kind of hard to actually wrap your head around what that really means. For me, it's 5 strategies that's going to ensure that your product, your project, your change management is going to be successful. It always starts with the emphasize, and we are humans. That means immediately when we see a scene, we're going to put on our personal rating. So we see this child is running. We really don't know why the child is running, and a bad case would be there's a lion, so we need to help the child. So we have a problem to solve, and that would be a situation where, yes, we detect we have a problem and continue with a project. The second situation might be the child is just running and wants to buy an ice cream. Well, this is a situation where, well, someone thought we have a problem. We did an investigation, we checked it, and actually we don't need to build any solution. We don't need to actually change anything. And the second, let's say the second option or the second, say, a benefit of design thinking is really this defined phase. So many projects that we see is they're the wrong people writing the requirements. It's the head of of a department. It's the CEO of a company that kind of thinks this is the way my employees should work. And while this might all be true from a business perspective, the only way to really figure out what you need from a requirements and a testing perspective, you really have to sit down with those end users and have those conversations. So the second benefit of design thinking is it really forces you go and seek those end users, have those conversations, and be 100% sure that what you're building is really meaningful for them. Which brings us to the ideation part. And this again is a stumbling block. Often when people have those requirements to list it out and we have discussions with technicians, they immediately say, okay, this is the way we're going to solve the problem. And it often depends on to what company you're going to go. If you're going to come to Microsoft, well, we have Microsoft products. If you're going to go to SAP, well, we have an SAP product. And if you're going to go to IBM, well, we have an IBM solution. The point here is technicians are great at solving problems, but you should kind of be skeptical or wary about maybe the other alternatives, not only those technical solutions that we have. And the ideation part is really about bringing those other people and those other perspectives into the ideation process. And the fourth step is about prototyping. And often the misconception about prototyping, what you're going to see in many software development teams, oh, we need a prototype, we immediately start decoding. And they build something, and while they build the prototype, they invest time. And then once it comes to, well, now we're building a real application, the discussion is, can we take those prototypes? Do we need to kind of start new? The lessons from design thinking is a prototype does not need to be any coded thing. It can be a user story. It could be a storyboard, a user journey. It could just be walking the end users through a situation. Is this really what you want to have? And the last thing is when it comes to testing. So in many cases, you might be building this prototype. You're super excited. It works. You get a good feedback, but you really don't test it. So you immediately start to jump to the conclusion if the prototype works, well, then we can scale it. So the testing is really the last one where it ties back to the end users. in the defined state, we had the discussion with the end user. Is this what you want to have? And in the test phase within testing, does the prototype really match your expectations? So the nice thing about design thinking is you can do this in 1 week if you go through those 5 steps. And maybe one last thing about this is this misconception that in order to use design thinking, you have to start with emphasize, or maybe you're working on a project and you're in testing and you're kind of stuck with that. And maybe that's the place where you kind of ask your question, are those requirements correct? Does that really make sense? And you go back to the emphasize phase, and then you question the define phase, and then you question the ideation, the solutions, and the prototyping. So the message is, think of those 5 activities as opportunities for you to ensure that your product that you kind of deliver and the end of the day is really going to be successful. You don't have to start as emphasize. You can basically start at any phase, but just ensure that you really have a clear understanding of them. And in most cases, it's an iteration. So you might start with a smaller part and evolve your applications over time. Next step about design thinking, we live in a technical society and we all love technology. And in many cases, when we have problems, the first question is like, how can we actually apply technology? But the learning from design thinking is maybe you want to go one step back. And that brings me to the next thing is, can everyone use design thinking, and why do we actually use or do we need design thinking in a technology world? Well, the good news, I think design thinking is something that's actually rooted in our DNA. So if you just observe a child that is born, everything looks different, doesn't understand appearance, doesn't understand language, everything tastes different, everything is completely new. And how do children actually or how are they able to survive and learn so fast in the first few years? If you observe a child growing up in the first 1, 2, 3 years, like spectacular what that child can learn. And I think the main reason is really a different mindset. And for a child, everything is possible, and they basically embrace creativity. But then also the other thing that's nice about children is like they're not embarrassed. They try out everything. If you're looking at this child eating the ice cream, from an exploratory point of view, that makes a lot of sense. Or you can feel the texture, you can feel that it is cold, it's smelling the ice cream, tasting it all at the same time. Would a grown up do this when they're exploring? No, they won't in general. And this is actually also a barrier. And this brings us basically to the cultural limitations that we have in organizations, and why design thinking is really helpful for all kinds of changes, from change management to innovating new products, or kind of finding new ways of working together. It's really that people are embarrassed or they're feared within an organization hierarchy. Imagine that you're called into a room with the CEO and someone's asking you, well, what's your idea for solving problem XYZ? Well, before you raise your hand, you're going to have all kinds of thoughts. Is it appropriate to say it? What if people think my idea is stupid? What is my line manager going to think? Well, if I bring these ideas, other people might just think that I want to shine in front of the CEO. I might be offending other people if my idea is against something that's done in the organization. So there are hundreds of reasons for people to actually keep back with their ideas and the improvements. And that means you don't have those ideas when you're trying to improve processes or projects or working on new ideas. And if you look at those 2 pictures, you see those 2 children on the top and the 3 guys on the bottom. And on the top, you see them in a kindergarten, and on bottom, it's a design thinking workshop. And the message here, essentially, this is really exactly the same thing. A kindergarten is a protected space for children to be creative, and no one's going to ridicule them and point fingers at them and laugh at them. If a child draws a cat with 5 legs, no parent will say you're stupid because a cat only has 4 legs. They're going to have a conversation and open with their kids, or they're going to find it very nice. So, and the same thing is about the design thinking workshop. The idea of a design thinking workshop, you have this protected room, you have this protected event time box, basically for 3, 6 hours, or maybe for 2 days, where everybody can share all his ideas without having thoughts like, what does that mean? Are people gonna laugh? And it's a team exercise. Design thinking workshop, no one actually cares who has the ideas. they're successful if the group together can actually solve the problem. This said, as an introduction, why we need design thinking in organizations in the beginning, kind of linking to those two scenarios where you can use design thinking in requirement engineering, and the other one is change management, crafting your testing process, improving your test capabilities to strategy. What I'll walk you through is how you can use this method actually to create your own workshop, and also some tips if you're running this workshop, how you can make it successful. So the nice thing, they're free templates. I share them on LinkedIn. You can download them. In a sense, each of those templates is a task. Like, for example, stakeholder mapping is like who's involved in my project, who do you need to consider if I want to build my testing strategy. You might have a user journey, for example. How are you building this strategy? How does this product look like? And there are multiple templates. I don't want to go into details, you can explore them after. But the idea is that each of those tasks are time box tasks that have a very clear message, a very clear outcome, and create something that you can use in your workshop. So how do you start your workshop? You create your poster. You do this in PowerPoint. You print it out. You hang it on the wall. This is an example of a workshop I did in Australia, and you just walk the people. Well, here we're starting with some emphasizing, then we have over here, we have some stakeholder mapping, and then we're looking at a process. And at the end of the day, before we leave the workshop, we want to have a clear understanding of the next steps. So this is typically the way you're going to introduce a workshop. Then the question is, how are you going to start your workshop? And many people think workshops is much about discussions. I try to remove those discussions, and my first exercise is always going to be a task. We call it alone together, meaning people are going to get 5 or 10 minutes to think about a problem, to think about solutions idea, and then they're going to share those ideas one by one. And as I said before, it's really about enabling everyone in the organization to share your idea. And as a moderator, what you're trying to do is, here's your poster on the wall. You're here as a moderator, and you're trying to kind of give those people a stage to share your ideas. And often people, you will find different kinds of types. Some people are really keen to share their ideas, immediately are going to jump up and say, this is my fantastic idea. Other people are going to be more shy. So your role as a moderator to get out those results in the workshop is really to bring them on stage, make it clear that everyone should be listening to them, help them so they feel secure when sharing their idea, and ensure that everyone in your workshop is sharing your ideas, not only those people that are self-promoting, that like to stand in front and talk a lot. Really seek those quiet people because they often have contributions that are really outstanding. The second thing, or when you kind of use this approach for design thinking, is I see this poster, and this is virtually as true as is in a physical workshop. It's like a big progress bar. So you put up kind of on the top some stickers, how much time you're allotting to these individual activities, because you really want to ensure you can complete the workshop on the end of the day or in the time that was given by the team. Sometimes you have a top level managers, or you have people that need to bring the or pick the children up from kindergarten, whatever. So if you promise to deliver the workshop by 4 o'clock, you should be finished. And having an overview and a good plan and a timeline is just going to help you to ensure so you know, are you in time or not. Then in workshops in general, you always have to also think about how you're going to deal with troublemakers. And what I mean with them is like people that are maybe kind of higher up in the organization. They're just used to talking long and having more ear on the time. And what you're basically doing is, since you're controlling the space and this is your poster and you're running the show, you're just going to tell this person, thanks for your contribution. You're going to ask someone else to come and share their thoughts. You can do this in a virtual online as well as in a physical online workshop, but it's really ensuring that everyone has the same ability or the same time to actually talk in your workshop. A nice way to close all of those workshops, and that's also important. It's a big ask from an organization. You might have a larger team, so I want to spend a full day or 1.5 or 2 days with my team to craft a new testing solution. So what are you giving back to the organization? I mean, if you have 10 people and you have 2 days, that's basically 20 man days. This is like 2/3 of a month. Yeah. So why should management do it? So very important is a summary from a workshop. It's always good to pick out a person who's going to walk you through the complete summary what you did. Like we started with looking at the personas, then we started to look at what are actually your real problems in the test environment. Maybe we detected some misalignments with the development or the product owner. Kind of give a complete summary of the story for everyone who's in the workshop. Why? Because the next day when they go back to the workplace, the first thing people are going to ask, well, why weren't you here at work yesterday? Oh, we had a workshop. Well, what you do, the last thing you want them to say, oh, we were kind of writing post-its. That kind of sounds like it's not work. So what you're doing is you're framing a story that they can bring back to the managers, to the colleagues, and it's also kind of a final verification that we all agree that this is kind of what we discussed in the workshop. The last thing that's also super important, and I'm convinced the workshop without documentation is really a waste of time, is after workshop is finished, the workshop owner should actually sit down and write the proper documentation. Why? Because in many cases you will have good innovative ideas. You'll go to management, say, okay, we had all of this discussion. The best thing would be we will go and buy the following testing tools. We will create new testing teams. We need to hire another 3 or 5 people. And they might say, yeah, that's all a fantastic idea, but it's September, so let's have a conversation next January, or no, forget about January. We have a new project. Come back in March. So capture all of those information. It's valuable. Going to need it basically whenever you get the okay from management, from the investors, from your client to actually jumpstart the project. The last thing I'll just talk about, and then I'll go into a Q&A, 6 things that you can get out of your design thinking workshop in general. And the first one might not be super obvious, but the first one is really about protecting the environment. Why? Because in many cases, you have many consultants flying all over the world, traveling, spending huge amount of energy, and we still have like 40% of all software developed is never goes into production. So a huge amount of effort and energy wasted. And design thinking can kind of protect you from working on projects or creating projects most probably you won't be successful. The second important thing is really about team building. This is for your internal team, but also for customer projects. And many projects, the first time, let's say you're going to have the account or the customer manager working with the factory manager and sitting with the warehouse manager, employees in the same room. Take this as an opportunity for team building when you're trying to craft a strategy, trying to craft a project, or trying to craft a change management initiative. Take this as opportunity to have those people sit together and exchange ideas and better understand the views and why things maybe are not working in other departments. When it comes to democratizing everything in a workshop, as a moderator, your responsibility is to ensure that everyone who's in the workshop feels comfortable to share their ideas, and always look out for those people who are kind of more quiet and help them to also share their ideas, because in many cases they have great ideas they won't share if you're not going to help them. When it comes to exploring crazy ideas, this is also an opportunity. Let's say if you have a workshop and someone says, let's be super crazy, let's go and use Bitcoins for, let's say, a purchasing process, and people say, I'm not sure if that's a good idea. And someone raises his hand and says, my friend, my colleague is just creating or writing a PhD, and that he's an expert. I just can call him and he could be here next day. So it's really about people sharing all the experiences from the life and saying, well, those are things we could actually do. And if you know that someone in the group has this ability, this knowledge to share in the project, and often that's a kind of a starting point for people to really think about this as an opportunity. The fifth one is about visualizations. If I speak something, if I say a word, it's like it vanishes, it's gone. The moment you write it on a post-it, you can move it. And this is just an example that if the Egyptians didn't take the time to chisel all of that in stone, we probably would not know too much about their culture. And the same is true for a workshop. If you don't document stuff, if you don't write it down, the information is basically lost. And the last thing is really about benefits of documentation. If you're running those workshops, it's really a unique insight and opportunity as a consultant within a company or with customers to really listen and understand those details about processes, about products people want to build. And if you document it, you're really building a library of knowledge. So if you attended or if you have moderated several hundred workshops in different industries, guess what? You're building a huge knowledge repository, and you start to see, let's say, interlinks between different industries, between different products that you're building, and that just makes you so much richer as a consultant. And with that knowledge, you can help them in return other projects or new projects you're working on, or processes or change management initiatives where you're helping. You can take all of that knowledge and help those people in the groups to guide and build applications and solutions that are successful. This said, I share all of my stuff on LinkedIn. Most of the templates you can download. I like writing articles. I like engaging with people, getting feedback on that. Yeah, maybe just the last thing kind of to think about. So when I joined Microsoft, for me, it was like, is Design Thinker. It's really the only company that has 4 post-its in its logo. And with that, I'm finished with my presentation, and I would be open for any questions.
Thank you very much, Sean. Let's see the questions. The first question from Andreas. As you said, a workshop might be a hard sell depending on the company. How would you include some of the ideas presented here into daily work where teams often have more autonomy? What should we focus on?
Yeah, so when it comes to selling a workshop into an organization, the biggest stumbling block is, let's say, if you're really pressed and you have little resources, going to management and asking them for a full day workshop could be like a real a challenge. But a workaround is, in many cases, is those workshops can be also super short. You can have a 60-minute workshop, yeah, and you don't need 10 people. So maybe you're taking 5 testers or 2 testers, 2 developers, and the project managers, and you just spend 1 hour, 1.5 hours, and then you actually show those results to management. And what they kind of understand is, if they compare, well, if you have a problem and you're sitting down in 1 hour face to face or online meeting, what are the results? But now you're comparing it with the creative results from the workshop. So that can be a way to actually sell it into the organization. In the end, management will always support you if they understand that the time that you're using in the workshop is more valuable than having a standard conversation, which you probably have every day in daily meetings.
Thank you very much. Looks like there is no more questions yet. We can... there is now one. The question is, how much time it would take to prepare and organize such a workshop?
Yeah, in general, to prepare a workshop, you can say it would take probably 1 day. I would say 8 hours. And again, it depends. Is this a customer workshop? Is an internal workshop? So the tasks that you need to do is, you need to identify the workshop owner in the organization or the customer. You need to sit down with this person, explain them what you're going to get. In general, the way I do it, I'll always design a poster, put it into Klaxon, have a conversation with the workshop owner, run them through the complete workshop start to end. So this is the topic, what we want to do. These are the activities, what we want to do. This is the result you're going to get from the workshop. And these are the people that I want to have in my workshop. So this is something that usually takes, let's say, 1 day to set it up, because you're going to have 2 or 3 meetings. A first meeting, usually internally, then with your customer, you're going to have some feedback, and then you're going to do the final preparative work. if you're going to actually have a physical on-site workshop, you need to print the posters, you need to go to a print shop. Then of course you need to travel there. So once the workshop is finished, designed, that's like 1 day for the preparation, and for the follow-up, doing the documentation, you usually can say at least 2 or 3 days, meaning something like 16 to 20 hours for actually writing out the full documentation of the workshop.
Thank you. Let's go to the next question. What tools are better to use for building a billboard?
Yeah, so the way I do those billboards, I create all of them in PowerPoint, and that's also the templates they share on LinkedIn. And there are 2 reasons for that. First of all, I wanted to kind of enable as many people as possible and not force them to, oh, you need to go and buy an Adobe Photoshop or an Adobe Illustrator or any tool. So and there's like 1 billion people using it. But the second, maybe more important point is you might be very skilled at creating those templates. But before I have a workshop, I traditionally will always send it to the customer. Yeah, because it can always be small wordings. Let's say one company will talk about sales manager and the other will call about sales representative. I'm really too eager to remove all, let's say, misunderstandings in a workshops, and it can be small things. And if you're doing it in PowerPoint, I just can send it to the customer. They can look over it. They can change the wordings. Maybe they don't like a picture or they want to change some colors. But I'm really giving them the full responsibility or the possibility to change. If they say everything's fine, then I'll just take that PowerPoint and import it into Klaxon. You also can find some videos how to do it. It's not straightforward. You need to select the PowerPoint, the complete graphic, and import it into Paint, cut it into different parts, and then import it into Klaxon. But all of those visuals you're ever going to see that I share are all created in PowerPoint.
Thank you for this question and for this answer. The next one is, do you plan to write the book? From Palina.
Yeah, I wrote a book on that. It's about 500 pages, and it gives you a detailed explanation of everything. It's also shows you all, let's say, the complete process, how to sell a workshop, how to design a workshop, even things like how to set up your workshop room. Yeah, you can purchase it on Kindle, and it gives you a complete process. The design thinking book that I wrote, I really thought there are a huge amount of books about design thinking, what it is and how it helps with creativity. But I thought there's really one missing, how to moderate the design thinking workshop. And I think the workshop is really the place where the tire meets the road. It's really where the traction is. We don't have enough moderators. This is also the reason why I'm sharing my knowledge in conferences on LinkedIn. And it's a skill that can make you super successful. It's people are looking for moderators who can really do it. That book gives you everything that you actually need to run your own workshops.
Great, thank you very much. So I guess it's time to conclude this Q&A section. Thank you very much for this talk again, Sean. And everyone, see you in 7 minutes on the next talk.
Thanks a lot for joining, and wish you all a nice day and much success with design thinking workshops. Bye-bye.
Thank you.